My name is Jane, and I am 61 years old. I wore the blue dress David said made my eyes look bright, and I promised myself I would only feel joy at my son's wedding. But as I walked toward the mother of the groom's chair, the hand of Bianca, my son's bride, to be rested lightly on its back. I thought she was straightening it for me. I was wrong. Before I tell you about the fall that silenced the ballroom, and about the person who stood up for me when my own son was still frozen, I am curious where you are listening from. Are you perhaps in your own quiet kitchen, thinking about family? Let me know in the comments, and if you want to walk with a woman finding her voice at 60, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. The story really begins months before the wedding in my small, tidy living room in Sacramento. The walls are covered with pictures of David at every stage. His father, my Frank, has been gone for 10 years now, and raising David alone on an accountant's salary is the thing I am most proud of in my life. I worked 35 years at Henderson & Lowe, a small firm that felt like family, and I retired with a modest pension, and this house paid off. David was my whole world. He became a software engineer, smart and kind, just like his dad. When he called his voice bubbling over to say he was engaged, I felt a happiness so pure it brought tears. He told me about Bianca Hamilton. He said she was brilliant, ambitious, beautiful. He said her family was from San Francisco, that her father was in real estate. I heard the awe in his voice, a slight nervousness. The dinner to meet them was at a restaurant whose name I had only seen in society pages. I wore my best department store dress and felt the fabric thin under my fingertips. Frank's wedding ring, which I still wear, felt suddenly very small on my hand. The Hamiltons were a tableau of cool elegance. Richard Hamilton had a handshake that was all bone and no warmth. Victoria Hamilton smiled without it reaching her eyes. And Bianca was stunning like a young actress clinging to David's arm. Her questions were polite arrows. So Jane accounting, that must be so precise. Do you ever miss it? And later, David says you live alone. How brave. It was said with a smile, but it made my life sound lonely and stark, not peaceful and independent. I mentioned helping with wedding flowers, something I love. Bianca patted my hand. Oh, that's so sweet of you to offer, but we have a full-service planner. It's a massive undertaking. I wouldn't dream of burdening you. The word burden hung in the air. David just beamed at her, seeing only efficiency. In the following months, I felt like a ghost in my own son's wedding plans. I was copied on emails filled with words like tablescapes and charcuterie groves. My few suggestions about a family prayer or a simple cake flavor got lost in the digital shuffle. I once drove 2 hours to a bakery Bianca had raved about, sampled a lemon lavender cake, and mailed her a slice with a note. I never heard back. When I asked David, he said, "She's just swamped, Mom, and she has a specific vision." His words were meant to reassure, but they felt like a gentle door closing. The wedding was at a vineyard estate in Napa. It looked like a movie set. I arrived a day early, hoping to be useful. I found the ballroom and saw a young woman with a headset directing workers. I introduced myself. "I'm the groom's mother. Is there anything I can do?" She looked at her clipboard, polite but firm. "Everything is on schedule, ma'am. Perhaps you could enjoy the spa." I wandered the gardens instead, feeling unnecessary. That night was the rehearsal dinner. I was seated at a table with Bianca's great aunt and some cousins who discussed skiing in Aspen and art auctions. One cousin, a woman my age with sharp cheekbones, looked at my simple silk blouse and asked, "Are you with the venue staff?" I felt my face grow hot. A light tinkling laugh came from Bianca's table, where she sat surrounded by her friends. David was at the head table laughing at something Mr. Hamilton said, completely unaware. The day of the wedding dawned clear and cruel in its beauty. My blue dress felt right. David saw me before the ceremony and hugged me tight. "You look beautiful, Mom," he whispered, and for a moment it was just us again. The ceremony was beautiful. Bianca was a vision. But when she said her vows, her eyes locked on David's with an intensity that felt possessive, not loving. The reception began. My assigned seat was at a round table at the edge of the dance floor with the Hamilton family lawyer and his wife and two of Bianca's college friends. They were perfectly polite and perfectly disinterested in me. The conversation swirled around them. I heard one friend, a blonde woman named Chloe, say to the other, "She looks so vintage." B said David's trying to modernize her, but it's like trying to polish a brick. They both giggled, not even bothering to lower their voices, assuming I was irrelevant or deaf. The comment was a physical blow. I excused myself and pushed through the French doors to a terrace. The cool air hit me. I leaned on the railing, looking at the perfect rows of vines, and let the silent tears come. This was not how it was supposed to be. I was supposed to be celebrating. I thought of Frank wishing he was here to put a steadying hand on my shoulder. After a few minutes, I wiped my eyes. I would not let them see me cry. I fixed my smile, the one I used for difficult clients, and went back inside. Speeches were starting. The best man, a friend of David's, was talking. I needed to sit down. My chair was halfway pushed in. As I approached, Bianca glided over. She was radiant, her smile dazzling. "Jane," she said, her voice honey-sweet. "There you are." Her hand with its perfectly manicured nails rested on the back of my chair. I gave her a small grateful smile, thinking she was being attentive. I began to lower myself into the seat. In that split second, with a smooth, practiced motion, she pulled the chair straight back. My body met empty air. I landed hard on my tailbone on the polished wooden floor, a jolt of pain shooting up my spine. My small beaded clutch flew from my hand, spitting out lipstick, a tissue, and Frank's old handkerchief. A collective "Oh!" gasped through the crowd. Then from the direction of Bianca's friends, a snicker. Then another. It spread like a ripple. Bianca put a hand to her mouth, her eyes wide with mock surprise. She leaned down, her voice a stage whisper, dripping with false concern. "Oh, Jane, you have to be more careful. I guess you're used to sturdier furniture." Then she bent closer, her lips almost touching my ear, and her voice dropped to a venomous hiss only I could hear. "Actually, maybe your place is on the floor. It suits you." The world shrank to the pain in my back, the cool wood beneath me, and the heat of 100 eyes upon me. I saw David across the room, his face a mask of shock rooted to the spot. Humiliation washed over me, hot and suffocating. I was a spectacle, a joke, an old woman on the floor where the bride had put her. The laughter died as quickly as it started, choked off by the sound of sharp, authoritative footsteps. They came not from the seated guests, but from the service entrance. A woman in the crisp black and white uniform of the venue's senior staff marched toward me. She was in her late 60s, her silver hair in a severe bun, her posture erect. It was Eleanor, the head server, who had been overseeing our section with quiet efficiency all evening. She didn't run, but her pace was deliberate. She knelt beside me on the floor, not caring about her pristine uniform. She first looked into my eyes, her own, a steady grey. "Ma'am, are you injured? Can you move your legs?" Her voice was clear, calm, and carried. She didn't address the crowd. She addressed me, treating the situation with a gravity that instantly shamed the tittering guests. She picked up Frank's handkerchief, folded it neatly, and placed it in my trembling hand. Then she looked up, her gaze sweeping over Bianca, who had taken a step back. "This is a serious incident," Eleanor announced, her voice now projecting to the room. "As a senior staff member of this establishment, I have a duty of care to our guests. This appears to be a deliberate act, not an accident. I will be summoning the venue manager and our on-call medical responder immediately." The words deliberate act hung in the air, legal and heavy. An older gentleman at a nearby table, Mr. Miller, a business associate of Richard Hamilton's, stood up. His face was stern. "Young lady," he boomed, pointing a finger at Bianca. "That was disgraceful." Bianca's composure cracked. Her cheeks flushed crimson. "It was an accident," she cried, her voice shrill. "I was trying to help her. The chair must have stuck." She looked wildly at David, who was finally moving toward us, his expression a storm of confusion and anger. Eleanor stood helping me to sit up slowly. She faced Bianca, a pillar of impersonal professionalism. "With all due respect, miss, I have worked in this industry for over 3 decades. I know the difference between a slip and a pull, and I witnessed this one clearly. Furthermore," she continued, turning her body slightly to include more of the room, "if the guest wishes to press charges for assault, I am obligated to provide my statement and security footage to the authorities." The phrase security footage sent a new wave of murmurs through the crowd. Bianca's parents were now at her side, Victoria looking horrified, Richard trying to project calm. In that moment of chaos, as David reached my side and crouched down, his hand on my arm, "Mom, oh my God, Mom!" I looked from his anguished face to Bianca's panicked one, to the stoic, defiant strength in Eleanor's. The initial shock was hardening into something else, a cold, clear resolve. I placed my hand over David's. My voice, when it came, was quieter than Eleanor's, but it cut through the noise. It was rough but steady. "Thank you, Eleanor. No police. Not yet." I looked at David, then at Bianca. "We need to talk. Now. Somewhere private." Eleanor helped me to my feet. My back ached fiercely, but I straightened it. David held my other arm, his face pale. Bianca, after a furious whisper from her father followed, trailed by a silent, stone-faced Richard Hamilton. Eleanor led us to a small book-lined study off the main hall, used for private wine tastings. She gave my arm a slight firm squeeze before closing the door, leaving the 4 of us in the heavy silence. I sat in a leather armchair, ignoring the pain. David stood by the fireplace, running a hand through his hair. Bianca perched on the edge of a sofa, her father standing behind her like a sentinel. "David, honey, sit down," I said. He did, looking lost. I focused on Bianca. "That was not an accident, and this is not the first time." My voice was flat factual, like I was reviewing a ledger with discrepancies. "From the first dinner, your comments, the way you've excluded me from every single plan, the vintage remarks I overheard today, the purposeful forgetting. You have been trying to diminish me. Why, to prove what? That you're better than the woman who raised the man you claim to love." Bianca opened her mouth, but her father put a hand on her shoulder. "Jane, please. This is highly emotional. Bianca is under immense stress. It was a clumsy mistake in the heat of a busy day." "No, Dad," Bianca whispered. Then her voice broke. She looked at David. Tears now streaming, but they seemed different from the crocodile tears of moments before. These were angry, frustrated. "She's right. Okay, she's right." She swiveled to face me, her mask gone, replaced by a startling venom. "You are a problem. You and your middle-class simplicity, your little house, and your accountant stories. David is moving into a different world, a world, and you are an anchor. My parents said you'd be a constant source of embarrassment, always needing to be explained. We were going to buy you a new wardrobe, send you on cruises, keep you busy and out of the way. But you just kept showing up, wanting to be involved." She spat the words. "The chair, it was supposed to be a lesson, a little public reminder of your place, so you'd finally understand and keep your distance." The room was utterly silent. David stared at her as if seeing a stranger. Richard Hamilton looked at the floor. I felt a profound sadness, but the humiliation was gone, burned away by the raw, ugly truth. I turned to my son. "David, I love you, more than anything, and I want your happiness. But happiness cannot be built on the humiliation of the person who gave you life. Today, you have a choice. It is not between me and Bianca. It is between accepting a marriage that begins with cruelty and deceit and demanding basic human respect for your mother and for yourself. I stood up, my body protesting. I looked at Bianca, at her father, and finally at my son, whose eyes were brimming with tears. I cannot stay at this party. I am leaving. The choice is yours. I walked to the door, my head high, and opened it. I did not look back. The walk back through the ballroom felt endless and yet too short. The music had stopped. Hundreds of eyes followed me, but the laughter was gone. In its place was a hushed, uneasy respect. Eleanor materialized at my side, taking my arm not as a supporter of a frail woman, but as an escort. As we passed the table where Mr. Miller sat, he gave me a slow, solemn nod. We walked out into the lobby away from the gilded cage of the reception. Eleanor helped me into my coat. "My car is just out front," I said. "I can manage." "Let me walk you," she insisted. Her voice softened for the first time. No one should walk alone after that. In the crisp night air, she said, "I lost my husband 20 years ago, raised 2 sons on a waitress's salary. I know what it is to be looked down upon for how you earn your living." I looked at her, really looked. The stern professionalism was a shield just like my quiet accountant's demeanor was. We were cut from the same worn, durable cloth. "Thank you, Eleanor, for seeing me, for saying something." "You stood up for yourself in there," she said. "That was the bravest part. I just turned on the lights." I drove the 2 hours home in a strange, numb state. The pain in my back was a throbbing companion, but my mind was clear. I had drawn a line. I did not know what would happen, but for the first time in months, I felt a shred of my own dignity returned, clutched in my hand like Frank's handkerchief. The fallout came in waves. David called at 3 in the morning, his voice ragged. He had told Bianca the wedding was off indefinitely. The Hamiltons had left in a fury-threatening legal action over breach of contract with vendors. He was staying at a hotel. He was so sorry, so sorry. I told him to sleep. We would talk in the light. A week later, the Hamiltons came to my door. Richard, Victoria, and a chastened, cold-eyed Bianca. They sat in my modest living room, looking utterly out of place. Richard did the talking. "Jane, we're here to be reasonable. This has been a terrible misunderstanding. Emotions ran high. We are prepared to offer a substantial settlement to you for your distress and any medical bills. In return, we'd ask you to encourage David to reconcile. This wedding is important for many reasons: business connections, family standing. Your silence and support would be valued." He slid a folded check across my coffee table. It was a bribe, plain and simple. I thought of my ledgers of documenting every transaction. I discreetly touched the record button on my phone lying next to me. "Let me be sure I understand, Richard," I said, my accountant's voice calm. "You are offering me money to persuade my son to marry your daughter after she intentionally assaulted me and you dismissed it as a misunderstanding." He shifted, uncomfortable. "We're offering compensation and a fresh start for everyone." I pushed the check back. "No, thank you. My relationship with my son is not a line item on your balance sheet." They left their outrage, a palpable chill in the air. The recorded conversation was saved labeled and backed up, just in case. The physical pain required a physical response. I started physical therapy for my back. The therapist, a no-nonsense woman named Linda, became a friend of sorts. "You took quite a spill," she'd say as she guided me through exercises. "What happened?" I told her bits and pieces. "Good for you for walking away," she grunted. "Some people spend a lifetime trying to please folks who'll never give them a chair to sit on." I also walked back into the world. I joined the book club at the local library. The first meeting I was nervous, my hands shaking as I poured coffee. But the women there, retirees, teachers, a former nurse, talked about the story, and then about their lives, their grandchildren, their gardens, their own losses and joys. No one asked about my net worth or my social connections. They asked my opinion of the protagonist. I started to breathe easier. David came over every Sunday. We cooked simple meals together like we used to. The conversations were painful at first, full of his guilt and my careful reassurance. He was in therapy himself, unraveling the ways he'd been dazzled and manipulated. He showed me messages from Bianca, swinging from venomous rage to desperate pleas. He didn't respond. I didn't see it, Mom. I was so proud she chose me, I ignored everything else. I told him love shouldn't make you blind to cruelty. It should make you sharper in defending what's good. Eleanor and I began meeting for monthly lunches. She introduced me to the manager of a local women's shelter who mentioned they were desperate for someone to help their residents with basic budgeting, navigating debt, understanding rental agreements. A spark long dormant flickered in me. I volunteered. Sitting at a table with women who had lost everything, helping them see a path forward on a spreadsheet, it gave my skills a purpose that corporate audits never had. I was not just Jane David's mum. I was Jane who could help you build a budget. Jane who could explain compound interest. Jane who knew how to make numbers tell the truth. A year later, life has a different shape. It is quieter, but it is mine. The blue dress hangs in my closet. I wear it sometimes not as a symbol of that day's pain, but as a reminder of the day I decided the floor was not my permanent address. David is dating a kindergarten teacher named Anna. She has a warm laugh and brought me a succulent in a painted pot. She asks me about my work at the shelter. We have her over for spaghetti, and the conversation is easy, full of real listening. The deepest lesson I learned is this: courage isn't always a loud fight. Sometimes it is the quiet, agonizing act of getting up from the floor, smoothing your skirt, and speaking your truth without screaming. Your dignity is not determined by the chair someone else offers you, but by the posture you hold when they try to take it away. And sometimes the most powerful ally is not family, but a stranger who remembers their own humanity and acts on it. So what about you? Have you ever had a moment where you felt someone was trying to keep you in a place you didn't belong? How did you find the strength to stand up, literally or figuratively? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, if it reminded you of your own worth, please give this video a like. It lets me know these shared experiences matter. Subscribe to the channel for more stories about finding our footing at any age. And if you know someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to stand up for yourself, please share this with them. Thank you for listening, for being part of this community. Remember, no matter what, you always have the right to get out of the chair they put you in and pull up your own. Wishing you peace and the courage to claim your seat at the table.